February 5th, 2025 Mendon Select Board meeting. Just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded. If you could please stand in.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So there are no remote participants on the board, so we're all here in person. Is there anything we need to take out of order? Right, Chair?
So we'll talk about Rock the Block at some point. We have Dan Byer joining the lobbies, parking director. Lonnie Tinio will be joining us.
Okay.
So we'll Rock the Block, but we may want to skip over that.
Okay, all right, well, we'll keep going forward then. Okay, so item 2, citizen statements and petitions. So they're quiet in the room. Don't see any hands raised online. So then we have a number of item 3 is a number of meeting minutes for approval. And I know, I think, were there some edits to some of these or some of the ones that were just circulated?
There were edits to both ones that have previously been circulated, which are now for approval.
Mm-hmm.
I believe some of the ones that are just circulated, but that's not a vote right now. So
right.
The motion would be as amended. Friends submitted a few notes for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think are innocuous in terms of the ultimate message of the minutes, but provide greater clarity.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then I would be looking for a motion to approve the set of minutes or
So so one set of minutes was before Jason would. So there were potentially more hands were and then be able to vote.
Okay, so then I'd be looking for a motion for the March 1st, 2023 minutes.
I move to approve the minutes for March 1st, 2023.
Second.
Ms. Catherine? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Thank you. And then I would be looking for a motion for the next set or some subset if anyone wants to remove any.
I think I want to, so I move to approve the minutes as amended for the following dates. 6/21/2023, 7/05/2023, 7/13/2023, 7/19/2023, 8/23/2023, 9/06/2023, 11/18/2024, and 12/04.
Second.
Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. And does that bring us to the end of the backlog or are there?
I believe there's some November one.
Okay.
I haven't made it to 80 yet. That's me too.
We're getting close.
We are very, very close.
Yes, fantastic.
So thank you, Deborah Schmidt.
Yes, thank you.
That's awesome.
All right, so then item 4 is meeting minutes for circulation, which we should all look over. And I know there were some questions and possible edits for some of those, so we should look those over.
So the 12/18 ones will be make sure it's for circulation. They were duplicated. The document was duplicated from a different meeting, so we'll get 12/18.
Thank you. All right, so then item 5 is appointments. So we have a possible appointment to the Historical Commission. Is the person here?
They're not here. Hazel's not here. Dan is here. Hazel has met with both the Historical Commission and Historic District Commission, of which Dan Byer is a member. Dan, do you want to speak to this candidacy? All right, Dan just dropped off. So this Hazel has met with both has met with both of the committees.
I believe there's a lot of overlap with those committees. They
They're trying to become.
Jointly,
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly, they're trying to become,
Yeah.
and it's back.
Right, Daniel, we were just asking if you had any thoughts about the appointment recommendation.
Yeah, sorry, I have a really bad signal. Yeah, she's come to a bunch of our meetings. And she'd be a great asset to join us. She has a ton of knowledge about historic properties and historic preservation.
Wonderful.
So
Okay.
that's super awesome.
Great, wonderful. All right, well, thank you to her. So I would be looking for a motion to appoint Hazel Charles.
So I move to appoint Hazel Charlesworth to the Historical Commission to fill a vacancy to expire June 30th, 2027, and to the Historic District Commission to fill a vacancy as an alternate member to expire June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Hazel, if you watch this recording. We appreciate you stepping up to this, and thank you, Dan. Great. All right, so then we have number 6 as a license renewal for Bob's Marine Service.
Yeah, so this was, normally we do this as part of the annual sort of thing we did between us and Bob. Didn't have the paperwork in on time, so this is in your packet, but it's a kind of routine license renewal.
Okay, so I guess I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the renewal for Bob's Marine Service 2025 Class 1 license.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Got great timing on these.
Look at that.
And now we get to item 7, which is Rock the Block. I'll share the room.
How's it going, everybody?
If you could just remind us who you are, no, for the recording, if you
No,
can, posterity.
Lonnie Tenney from 60C North Ave. So we had discussed last year that we didn't want to wear out Rock the Block by having it every year. So we said we'd kind of skip a year and do it every other year. So hence why somebody reminded me just the other day that, well, we gotta do it this year. And so we said, yeah, I said, all right, yeah, if everybody wants to do it, then I definitely be interested in helping. And figured I would start here to make sure that you guys are on board with it, or how you'd like to, if you'd like to run different, how we would like to see things done. In the past, so last year, I have to look back at the numbers, but I think we expended $800 out of the
Celebration.
the celebration account, just based upon all the donations we had received from local businesses and stuff. And I think that there was a few that we actually missed last year or came in so late that we ended up saying, okay, just wait for the next time. That we probably can maybe even get it down to 0. I did see an email from the fireworks company that there might be a new license or something that the state's requiring. It might increase that cost a little bit, but I don't think it was anything extravagant. So, yeah, kind of just looking for direction from what you all would like to see.
So is there a date chosen for this?
The date to pick is.
It's gonna be September, right?
Yeah, September. What's the first Saturday after Labor Day? That's at the Labor Day.
Between the 8th and the 12th. Wow.
First Saturday.
Sixth. Yeah.
Oh, so it's an early Labor Day.
Yeah, it's a weird. Yeah, so Labor Day is.
All right.
It's a weird. Just like every other holiday, this year is falling strangely. So it would be September 6th. Same place, same time.
So
What do you?
place be, sorry. Just, I mean, same place it was, right, Memorial.
Yeah, Memorial
So,
Field. Yeah,
yes,
Memorial Field.
right.
Looking to the same thing with the Brothers of the Brush would run the beverage trailer. We had kind of just posted it on Facebook that we We were looking to do it kind of save the date kind of deal. And a bunch of the food trucks already called. So we're hoping that's gonna be another big hit.
And have you been in communication with Parks?
Only through that email,
Okay.
which I think that,
Okay, so you have
is
Dan.
Dan on?
Yeah, he's on.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they've met yet. I definitely would meet with them, next to if everything was received forward. The food truck vendors all work directly with the Board of Health. She'll come down and inspect that day. Sorry. Colleen would come down, that day, inspect everybody's trailers, or food trucks. The, again, Russ, provide beverage. I think they do a cornhole tournament. And then we would work with probably the same company that worked with Party Rhode Island that supplies all of those games and whatnot, which we work with the local schools or local, any kind of local club that wanted to do it. The Boy Scouts in doing it. The last time, I know a bunch of sports teams, they made $800 off the stuff. So what we do is we would, from all the donations that we give, we cover the cost of what he is. He donates the party, I donate all of the prizes to give away to the kids that are playing the games and whatnot. And because that's covered, any money that they make goes back to all of those whatever group is doing.
Sorry, so where are the donations made to support this? So previously, has the town had a gift account for this?
Yep, so what and I don't know if it needs to be a separate gift account, but we would having them make it out and putting it directly into the
Celebration fund.
Yeah.
the celebration fund. And then the funds were then expended out.
There was like a 350th anniversary fund that we then converted
I mean,
to
general
another.
celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was at it's at Connect 351 about the Municipal Empowerment Act. And they talked about how part of the Municipal Empowerment Act is that donations given to towns and put into gift funds can be expended without further appropriation. That's part of the pending legislation. And what the chief of the Municipal Law Bureau said was, we're just codifying stuff that municipalities have been doing anyway.
I see.
So I just want to make sure we're very clearly segregate and have a gift account dedicated to this.
Mhm.
I don't.
Dedicated to paying out to the organizations. Okay.
Because any sense of what municipal finance law is, those donations would require, in order to be able to spend them, would require an appropriation to the legislative body prior to the passage of the municipal. So everybody does this, and it's kind of the way gift funds work, but I want to make sure we're very clear about the in and the out of the gifts. So I don't want it to be a general celebration or whatever. I want it to be very specific to this event.
I see, okay.
So
One of the things I had thought about before is that the Parks Department has a revolving account. And there are other events that are held there that under the auspices of the Parks Department, where that's exactly what a revolving account or revolving fund is for. And that's why, the first one of these that we did was in the town square. It was on the public way. We moved it up to the park a couple of years ago, and we did one or two like that up there.
we did two, I think we got it out of here just because.
Yeah.
Make sure to be.
Yeah, a lot of, right. But the point of the story is, it might work better to have all the money go through the parks revolving fund. I mean, I'll leave it up to you how you think it should happen,
They
but
have an expenditure ceiling set by town meeting that correlates a lot to their recreation programs. And I think if we tried to run the entirety of Rock the Block through that, we would go through that expenditure ceiling. And to increase that expenditure ceiling, you need a ton.
So, town meeting is before this event, so is there a way in which
Yeah, usually we put it in the budget and it is budgeted, it's a special account.
Is a gift account something that we can just set up?
I think you can set it up on the fly.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, it sounds like the path of least resistance.
Well, I guess, I don't think so. You thought.
Those are pretty different things, yeah. Dan has his hand up, but you can set up a gift account and the select board can accept gifts to do such. And it is the general practice of municipalities on the Commonwealth to be able to expend gifts in accordance with the donors.
So I
That's
think
the select board.
that's the path of least resistance.
So we-
set up the account.
So the method that I think kind of marries the letter and the spirit of the law would be that donations to the gift account come to select boards, accepts the donation, because you don't want to accept a donation that goes counter to the, whatever policy objective sound. So you would accept the donation for the execution of this party, and we would be able to expend it in accordance with that.
Question about that. I know we used that general celebration as seed money to get going, and a lot of it was reimbursed through donations. In this case, we need to go to town meeting to basically kickstart that gift account.
So is this a currently existing, so this is an account that exists kind
I
of.
think it's a special
Yeah,
account, so
there's a residual of it. We have to research a little bit with town accountant and what those deposits were, but my general impression is, yes, we can.
Okay, great.
And I guess, Dan, you've got your hand raised, so do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I was just gonna. You can hear me. It's probably a discussion for the Parks Commission, so I'm just speaking for myself, but I think I would rather see this out of its own account, just because, at least until it becomes an established repeating event, I wouldn't want to take on the liability of an event that has the potential, not that it would, to lose money that could jeopardize other parks programs. Like, I think there's a much larger discussion to understand, but if it could be run out of its own gift account, I think that's much cleaner. I mean, it seems like it broke even, but.
I think just the celebration account being funded through the annual budget process, didn't the town of fact appropriate those funds for town celebrations? So shouldn't we be able to spend from that
You
without?
can expend whatever's appropriated. Sure.
Okay,
Right, so we can kickstart it, to Brendan's point.
Yes, so to Brendan's point, 100%.
Yeah.
The other part, it's, function versus.
Yep.
Spirit versus.
just so I understand that this Municipal Empowerment Act is something they tried to pass last year and it didn't make it.
Right.
So it's not law yet.
No.
We're just hoping it's gonna be there by September.
It's not law yet, it's something that every municipality does in good faith, and the state is saying, everything you do is now legally sanctioned. So,
Well, it will once they actually legally sanction by passing.
Otherwise, it's still being done in good faith.
Correct.
so, yeah,
Sorry, one
someone else said this on record.
Yeah.
sort of says, note on that account. I believe we funded generously. That if we didn't even do any fundraising, this event actually could be covered probably 2 years in a row with the amount of money that's in there. However, the law of you would like to do one also where last year we did we charged for vendors, right? So in that section with the two fields kind of meet the fences, we put the vendors in there, and we got $50 or $100, something like that for them. So then those have been additional. And then we just had that weird rainy day where it rained completely everywhere around Mendon, but not anywhere in Mendon.
yeah, that was
So the entire day was, people didn't come, we went down Bellingham Street to go to the office and back on the table. And the road was near flooded. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was a weird day.
It was a weird. So we're hoping for everything.
And I know usually there are multiple bands also, I don't know, like.
Yep. We would probably do the 3 bands again. We're gonna set the stage slightly different. This year's complaints 2 years in a row from the band was, from the bands were the sun, when the sun is setting at that time. When they're playing, it's coming through the side of the stage on them, and it's just smoldering out there. So we're just gonna put the back of the stage towards the lake, and then that'll, you can keep the music and the sound going away from the lake as well, which will probably help a little bit of the sound barrier.
Yeah.
And just kind of change the flow.
Mhm.
And keep that at that side.
So for my edification, because I wasn't here the last time we did something like that, I've said we both times, who's we, is this a?
Oh, it's a small people, so there's, so the Brothers of the Brush, because they have run other events in town in the past years, they didn't want to run the whole event. I decided to help, we got some people, just some random folks in town that have helped in the last 2 years, that just helped to coordinate with the donations, they promote Facebook and the social.
So it's not a town committee. is what I-
It hasn't been, right, so again, that was also discussed at one point, but it was never, it was more just some people that got together.
You said a beverage trailer or cart or something like this is something that somebody's going to get a 1-day alcohol license for?
Correct, the Brothers of Russia represent all the tasks, they have insurance, and yeah, the full gamut.
They usually do that twice a year. They have like, they'll get a temporary alcohol license for the beach event that they do for their community group and then
Once
this.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Oh, really? Oh, okay, all right. So I mean, I think in the past, it was somewhat an official town event. I think, is that the ask again, that it be like an official town event?
Right.
And I guess I also wonder what that means in terms of like insurance or liability.
Yeah, I know we talked with Maya last time, and they were, well, it's even started back with the first time. This was way, they didn't love this either. And when we moved over there, they were kind of like, this one. So, and the, again, with the, obviously the alcohol liability is based on the folks getting the liquor license, so it's not the town really putting the liquor out there, or the beer and wine out there. Food trucks are bringing all of their own insurances and what have you. The stage is bringing their own insurances based on their equipment, their setup. REI, same thing, his stuff is all, he's got insurances for that. And the fireworks folks, yeah, obviously, they're covering insurance.
So it's just like fall liability on the property.
And any type of liability that there would be on public property.
I mean, yeah, for other like events in parks that are put on by the town. I mean, I guess, I don't know, what other events?
The two questions would be what liability question and then anything that's procured through a gift fund, making sure it comports with 30B and state procurement rules, because regardless of the source of funding, if it's the town that is the purchasing agent, we need to comply with state purchasing guidelines. My hesitation on the insurance question with the Brothers of the Brush, holding a 1-day liquor license is that, as I understand it, and Jonathan Dudley, who's a member of the Brothers of the Brush, is on, is not a 501c3, it's a community organization, is that correct? And I'm just not quite sure how the liability,
I think, so. Is that a new hand? Also? Go ahead, John.
So the brothers usually purchase a one day liquor liability policy to cover
perfect.
the event, and we also spend the money to get everybody certified for tips certification. So there'll be nobody up there serving that hasn't been through the training about over serving, and that is a requirement of the liquor liability policy that we purchase.
Perfect, yes, thank you, John.
And then Dan, did you have, is that a new hand or is that a previous hand?
Yeah, I would just add, I know when we did this the 350th, basically you can buy these 1-day policies and they will insure, they'll do a certificate, additional insured of whoever needs to be insured. So they'll name the town, name the brothers, whoever they need to name. And I think you probably need to get some sort of rider insurance for the whole event too, for like slip and fall stuff.
Cabot Risk has given it to us before.
Yeah, I've talked to our so whatever's about block specifically, so we'll, yeah. If guys, I just wanted to make sure about our outside.
So I guess the question is sort of what do we need to decide anything tonight? And if so, what?
I'm curious, what benefit there is to forming an official committee for this. And if we're gonna have this conversation every time it comes around, well, what did we discuss last time? I wasn't here. So I'm saying we, like I was here. What did we discuss last time this happened?
The other part was I sat on that side.
Right.
So
Right?
it's different, right? I think it's slightly different. Based upon, and like, if there needs to be a formal committee, we can.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Like, what are our benefits?
The funny thing, oh, sorry.
My only thought was that, and we had this discussion before, was that the difference between when it was in the town center and the public way and now being up at the parks, it's the way that parks would let any group come in and do it. And I just, the Men in Festival Committee, would just deal with the parks and we would sign off on whatever it is we need to sign off on.
I mean, that's a reasonable interpretation,
Yeah.
but that's like, I want to just make sure we represent that same interpretation every time we
Yeah,
do this.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the, after doing it twice. Because what I'm saying was, it doesn't matter to us, I think if it's a town committee, we're just, hey, do your thing, right? However, you guys. With that piece of it, only, the frustrating part is, okay, now when we meet, we'll have to do minutes or something like that.
Right.
so that's right. That's why my thought was that, to meet with the parks and come up with the plan with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll fully support it.
If it's an outside group doing an event on town and it's being supplemented by a town operated gift fund, you all have kind of policy direction over what we use those funds for, how do we accept the gifts, yada, yada. So you say to me, yes, accept funds and execute, the gift fund to support this project. And then we don't need to have a committee, you have me administer the gift fund, and then there's the outside group who's doing this project, and we support them. And I make sure the fund, of course, with municipal finance law, and we just go for it.
Sounds good.
Did you say that for us to authorize you to do that, or we just?
No, I
understand.
think it's a general policy directive for, I mean, maybe you can vote to say,
That we,
yes,
support
yeah,
the,
but
this.
Yeah, that's what I'd say, that make a motion that the select board, support the Rock the Block party effort that's gonna be
Just
happening.
including should it be including something about the funding? or
It's the
not
town
need
administrator
the
to
expenditure of the gift fund.
collect and expend.
that? So is that?
Yes,
Yeah,
Second.
okay. Discussion,
Right, I
further
know you-
discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, great.
Awesome, thanks.
So now it's. it's
And I'll be good.
That's right.
Oh,
No
and
problem.
Parks,
But
right?
it's easy as possible. Yeah, we'll deal with parks as well. The other thing is there a standard, I think we had in the past, I'll go look to see if I still have it, but we just had a standard gift letter that we would give, that as we were getting the payments, we would kind of just put the name of the entity on it and then bring it.
Yeah, so we can provide that. So if, we're a 501c. I think is what we're classified as. So it still is a tax deductible donation. Folks, they are making a donation and not receiving anything. They are returning it to.
Thanks.
Lonnie.
Looking forward to it.
Hey, Lonnie, meeting room downstairs doesn't work. The meeting room downstairs doesn't work. It hasn't worked
My shirt.
for it's been 2 weeks and it's still.
I think I fixed it. The power shut
Oh, you
off.
did?
Oh, damn, fix it. Okay.
Yes.
We had to reboot it
Tell us how you fixed it.
Jeremy,
Plug it in.
when did he fix it?
Yeah,
Is-
we were in there.
this morning, today, like it.
Oh, we need to check it.
Yeah,
We were in there too.
We were in there at 2:00 today.
It could have been user error. It could have been me. I'm not gonna discount
It
that.
turns on, it just doesn't show a screen.
Before we get the gift fund.
I'm just looking at it right now.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Right, and were there other things that Dan is on for tonight? Dan, since you're here,
He was number 10, 35 Hartford Avenue East. So,
Okay.
Let's try out that and have him.
okay, all right. So, do we want to, I don't know, Dan, do you have constraints on your time? I know you maybe had something else tonight.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't hear what you said. What was the other topic?
So we had a working group on 35 Hartford Avenue East about exercising or not exercising the town's right of first refusal after coming out of 61A status. And you were part of the working group. This will be brief. I know Tom Raleigh is on to talk about his point as well. So if I
Yeah.
can talk about it.
Yeah, so why don't we move ahead to item 10, the 35 Hartford Avenue East 61A status update.
So we put together a working group, which I talked about at the last regular meeting, between planning, conservation, assessing, CPC, myself, parks. I think that was all, to discuss the viability of 35 Hartford Avenue East, the Cahill Farm, coming out of 61A status, and whether the town wanted to execute its right of first refusal to match the purchase price under the bona fide purchase and sale agreement, which for the record is $560,000. The Cahill property was split amongst 3 parcels. The upper parcel, which was kind of the barn or fruit stand, as folks refer to it, the flat area, which was the workable farm, and then a lower area, which was wetlands and more of a wooded area. And this purchase and sale was just for that middle parcel, the flatter area, and ultimately about 200 feet worth of road frontage. The plan as presented in the purchase and sale agreement was for 4 single-family homes with a shared driveway with 50 feet each of road frontage. The group, in its professional but not official opinion, thought that was kind of an unworkable plan with Mendon's current zoning rules, and discussed it with the developer, development group, about alternatives, which kind of didn't really go anywhere. The person who's selling the land, I spoke with them as well. They're interested in selling some of the other parcels, but not as part of this purchase. But ultimately, the working group's suggestion or recommendation to the select board is to not exercise the right of first refusal for the sale. So to reiterate, once the town is in receipt of a bona fide purchase and sale agreement for a piece of land, which is 61A status, which is workable agricultural land, which receives a tax benefit while it's in that status. In order to come out of that status and be sold to someone else, the town gets right of first refusal to match a bona fide offer. So within 120 days, the town has to have the funds available to purchase that, which requires the funds available, special town meeting to acquire the. As the working group kind of went through the land, evaluated it with other pieces of property the town owns and said, what could we possibly use this for? It's very flat, which was really appealing. It's not quite big enough for as many multi-purpose sports fields as we would want it to be. So between the purchase price, the development price, and then the fact that if it was to be used for Mendon Upton fields, that it's on the opposite side of town from Upton. All of those things that compared to alternative property possibilities for the town, it didn't make sense for the group to recommend it. So it's like, do whatever it wants. But the group of planning, conservation, assessing, myself, CBC, is making a recommendation to not exercise the town's right of first refusal. And after speaking with council, the board should take a vote in the affirmative to not exercise its right, so as to let this transaction progress in advance. 20 days is fine.
And with that, sorry, when is 120? The letter came through, said in December.
At December 30th, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, no, I remember.
It would be roughly 4 months, right? So at the end of April, we would have to be able to call a town meeting and appropriate the funds to purchase. It's the recommendation or not.
Yeah.
Group
Okay.
to the board.
Okay.
Not text.
All right. And then, so Dan participated as part of parks, is that right? So
Yeah,
like, so,
I think Dan provided the salient detail of trying to convince town meeting that instead of developing current town-owned parcels, that we should acquire and then develop this
Right.
town-owned parcel, and also the proximity to Upton should
Right.
be used for town.
Yeah,
That's
good.
for both Dan's points.
Good. Yeah, Dan, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that pretty much sums up the discussion. I mean, I don't know, if the Parks Commission has not formally taken any vote on this,
Right.
it was just that one meeting,
Right,
but,
okay,
and I think, unfortunately, in the absence of really any serious data on what we truly need, it's hard to like justify, we need to buy this right now because we don't really know what we want to do with it yet,
right.
at least for parks.
And a not inconsequential detail is where to become of $560,000 in the next month and a half.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? So then I guess I would be looking for a motion for, so there's some suggested verbiage in your packet. Here, if you said,
Make a motion
Okay.
to not exercise the town's first right of refusal to purchase the land at 35 Hartford Ave East.
Second.
further discussion? Right, so this is to,
So I got one little bit of further
Oh,
discussion.
okay.
Do we have to also approve the removal of the 61A in the same motion, or is that a second?
I only put it there because that's what the letter was requesting. Like from,
I don't know that we have to, but if the motion is not exercised, so the removal
Yeah.
of 61A sites is not.
Okay.
The assessors.
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
As-
Okay, so we'll leave
what's
it
on
at
the
the-
break
I,
is
I,
not-
I think based on other things, isn't it the statutory issue if we don't take the right of first refusal and it's, the purpose is going to change from agricultural to residential, then the 61A status is automatically changed when the purpose is changed.
Exactly.
Right.
So it no longer becomes workable agricultural land, so it's not eligible for 61A. And then it becomes, just for everyone's understanding, the other two parts of the original parcel, which were, I know the upper part was not within 61A, they were paying full freight taxes on the upper part of the parcel. The lower part of the parcel, I believe, was lumped in with the workable land. So that's 61A status becomes purview of the assessor to say, this is any, it no longer becomes how many acres of workable land you have there. But that's kind of inside baseball for a different department. So yeah, it's just the right first.
Thank you for edifying me.
any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we are not exercising the right of first refusal. Great, thank you very much, and yeah, thank you for sticking around, Dan. All right, so then let's go back to number 8, which is the General Bylaw Review Committee, and I believe we have the chair of that committee here. Right, Tom Morley.
Hello,
Hello.
how are you all this fine evening? Thanks for having me today. I'm just here to discuss kind of what we've been working on in the General Bylaw Review Committee, our goals, our process, and just kind of let you know where we're at. The General Bylaw Review Committee was put together to, as it sounds, review the general bylaws of the town that currently exist, discuss potential future additions to the general bylaws, and hear from the public their concerns about bylaws that exist or that they may want to exist. To this end, we've been doing a top to bottom review of all the general bylaws. We've gotten through the first few sections. In addition, I sent this form to all the town departments and committees to kind of hear any concerns they might have about a lack of a certain bylaw or one of the current bylaws. And when people have highlighted those, we've sort of moved those to the top of the stack. So we've been, to this end, we've heard from several members of the public, as well as a few departments and committees as well as one of the select board members about certain areas of the bylaws they want us to look at. One particular area I think that we are very interested in, and we're actively comparing to other towns, is the possibility of a noise ordinance. Some of the other ones that came up have been a clear cutting bylaw, tightening up some of the bylaws around elections, as well as town meeting. I know we use electronic voting. That's something we might want to look to codify. And we're hoping, after getting some more public input on providing some recommendations to the select board once we finish this process, which is going to be an ongoing process, of course. But once we get through the first part of this process. Do you anticipate having some recommendations for the upcoming May annual town meeting? We are hoping to, yes. We're hoping to have some recommendations, I think, around a noise ordinance, as well as some minor changes to the first few bylaws or first few sections regarding town meeting dates, and then sort of to make them sort of jive.
Okay, and I guess I'm wondering about like the timeline for this, because you said you wanted to get more public input.
So what we're hoping,
yeah,
we're hoping to have our meetings are every 2 weeks. So we are hoping that after the first two meetings in February, or after the 2 February meetings, we're going to have sort of a public hearing on the recommendations we're going to make to the select board for the first meeting in March. And after that, we're going to make those recommendations.
okay.
I will add one, Tom, just for the board's application, that there is something specific about disposition of public property tied to a dollar value that is tied to an NGL about its initial purchase price. And the MGL has since changed, but our bylaw hasn't. So
Things like that.
it's not just specific to that disposition sort of thing, but bylaws that were, pegged to something originally, and then that standard has since changed. We need to look at laws and say, how can we change it? So I think our standard was $500, and now the state standard is $10,000. So we want to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Time to catch up.
Yeah. Another thing to consider, Tom, is timing. So I know it seems like the window's closing for
Right.
ATM, but just this afternoon, meeting with Bill Ambrosino, he mentioned the zoning bylaw review committee might be looking for a separate STM focused on bylaw. So
I think that's.
they may want to piggyback both committees to kind of bring it up together.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason we chose that March date was so that we had some stuff for the ATM prior to the closing date of the warrant.
Yeah, I'm just saying you might have some flexibility if we actually do a special town meeting focused on bylaw reviews.
Part of what I've talked to the committee about is making sure that there's a regular pace to bringing these reviews up into town meetings so that the town can expect to have to come in and vote on that at every town meeting, and ensuring that you don't overwhelm the town members with lots of choices every single meeting. So not waiting, for the May meeting or the spring or the fall meeting, just ensuring that they're spread out and paced out and relevant.
We've gone both ways on that. We literally separated, I think, like financial from bylaw into separate meetings because we were like hitting them. If you hit them with a bunch, I mean, we spread load the work.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't overwhelm people, having to read all the new legalese, right?
Right. Or you concentrate it to be one painful meeting and you have to read all the legalese. There's two, I'm just saying there's two schools of thought.
Right.
Well, I just want to interject that no town meeting in Mendon is painful. With the wonderful
They are
moderators we have.
enjoying, yes.
But
They're very well run.
Yes.
that's what I hear. That's what I
Part
heard
time.
in the grapevine, but I don't know.
Yeah, but, so in the event that there is a special town meeting, just for zoning bylaws, or just for bylaws,
Town meeting.
I think it's incumbent upon, the board's presenting and kind of dust my office to get that information out kind of well in advance.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that says we
And
want to
certainly-
spend X thousands on X capital, and Y capital.
Right.
This is 7 pages you need to read and understand, so there's, an expectation that we would be able to communicate that further in advance, than just a capital appropriation.
Yes.
And something the moderator's done, I think, is great. Actually, the previous one, Jay Byer started this where he would do a meeting before the meeting. And now with the technology, we can do that and go through all of the dry legalese and have it recorded so people can watch it on YouTube at their leisure and be ready and prepped at the meeting. So most of the questions are already answered.
Jesse, you also have thoughts about other like written information to share with the public to have available.
That's my aspiration. Tom, our moderator, did a great job on special time meeting to do the walkthrough that Mike is talking about right now. And I created a document that had some kind of contextual information that was presented at that meeting. What I'd like to do is expand upon that and the way the chair's talking about now, into more of a packet rather than just kind of one pager sort of things, and distribute that more widely. And I don't know that it would be kind of a mailer, but something that's available for folks to pick up either at town hall a few days in advance or at town meeting itself, where it says not just, vote to raise and appropriate, a sum of money to do whatever, but say what that sum is, say what the select board commentary on it, 2 sentences on it, say what FinCom's couple sentences is on it, or whoever the sponsoring board is, and have folks be able to take the truncated, legally necessary but not necessarily sufficient description in a warrant article and say, what does this actually mean? So that's what we're
Putting it on the website as well. Yeah.
Great.
So actually, one other question for you, Tom. So you mentioned you sent this form for input about the bylaw reviews to department heads and committee chairs. And you said you've also heard from the general public, and I guess for anybody watching this recording later, if other members of the public want to ask questions or submit something, what is the process?
So yeah, the process that we are following, I have a form, a Google form, or sorry, Microsoft form, because we're Microsoft town, on the General Bylaw Review Committee page.
Excellent.
Website, and so there's a link to it there if you want to fill it out. But I kind of planned in advance what we're discussing at which meeting. And like I said, what we're doing, we are going top to bottom through all of the general bylaws.
Okay.
And so like that allows us to prioritize because there's so many and because, it's a lot to get through. If somebody wants us to particularly highlight one, I can pull that one out of the stack, so to speak, and talk about it ahead of time. But we've heard from, we've had several departments. We've had the land use committee reach out. We've had parks. We've had conservation, fire chief, police chief. So we've we've been pretty busy.
Great.
There's a lot to clean up, and it's really interesting when you delve it. Well, I mean, I consider it interesting. Some people might think it's like watching paint dry, but to see sometimes that you think something's just you think something is just common sense that may have been missed, you know. So that's kind of why we're looking at that. One other thing we're doing, and this is kind of a town government nerd. This is something I'm really I guess you could say passionate about. Yeah, I spoke with Jeremy about this as well. We're kind of trying to figure out like kind of the sort of town government, what committees would be considered legislative, which would be considered executive. So, because in trying to figure out the intent of some of these bylaws, you have to figure out like the sort of power, like separation of power structures and how they were intended. So
Back to needing org chart, right?
Which is just something, a problem, or an opportunity Katie and I ran into about the org chart in terms of kind of professional town staff and how we overlay either elected or appointed boards and their relations with staff. And is it day-to-day, is it supervisory, is it policy, is it advisory versus supervisory? And just the dotted and straight lines became like way too complicated. So I think Tom's project and our project, whereas here's the day-to-day operations of town government from like a professional sense, and then here's how all of these boards, advisory, policy setting, elected, appointed, kind of flowing, either you're gaining of power or responsibility. I think they're related and separate projects, and we initially tried to relate them.
It's just too much. So for anybody who's listening, there's still some positions open
Oh, on the.
if you want to contribute.
yeah, we'd love to have you. I mean, we have a great talented group of people. There's currently 4 of us. I believe there's 7 members of the committee
Yep.
overall. There are
7.
3,
Okay, so there are more than one vacancy.
More than
there's
one.
3 vacancies.
Great. So Tom, I have another question, which is, have you, as a committee, interacted with the zoning bylaw review committee and to talk about where there might be? I know there's at least one thing in the general bylaw, general bylaws that seem like, I'm thinking about like the dirt was in the general bylaws, and it seems more like a zone question. Like, is there communication between the 2 committees?
So that is something we discussed at our last meeting, and is actually an action item of mine to reach out and discuss this with them. So that's something we're hoping to happen very soon, because in like the dirt removal one, I think was the one we highlighted as one we should.
Comes to mind, I don't know.
I think Tom, something to kind of frame it with, which I was told bluntly today, which maybe I knew and didn't quite internalize, is that when you're in the general bylaws, there is police enforcement. And when you're in the zoning bylaws, there's zoning officer.
I see.
And I don't think we want the police enforcing dirt.
No, I do not. I don't either. For multiple reasons, but
We wonder about why people are digging up their backyards, right? Maybe.
I mean, that bylaw is kind of depreciated anyway. I can't think of a
Right.
time when it's exercised.
I know there were some questions about it a couple of years ago with respect to.
I can understand why it's there.
Right,
It was a reaction to a particular event.
yes. Oh.
It's a great example of doing, I mean, it was well intentioned, but doing permanent damage over a temporary situation. It needs to be looked at.
Revisited, okay.
so yeah, that's our work is to look at all these bylaws, kind of parse out their intent, strengthen them. If we see some that are either unnecessary or like you said, need to be updated, refer those to Lisa. And yeah, that's what we're doing.
I just want to remind everyone, the zoning bylaw review committee is being supported by the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, which is operating under a grant through June 30th, whereas the general bylaws review committee is an appointed group of volunteers, which is ongoing. So if their work is not ready for annual town meeting, it may be ready for our special town meeting, or special town meeting, or next annual town meeting. This is ongoing and continuous. So with 3 vacancies.
It's fun work, good chance to make a difference.
Great. Anything else on this topic? Okay, well, thank you, Tom, for
Thanks,
joining
Tom.
us in that update.
Oh, no
That's,
problem.
Great to hear about it.
Yeah, no, I'll stick around for the discussion when the date's gonna be for town meeting, so
Great.
I think that's next, right?
That's number 7.
That's next.
It's soon. So, I mean, I think we've got 9, which is the host community agreement. Should we? Okay, so let's get that one out of the way.
Yeah, so the host community agreement, which was included in our packets, is the template agreement from the Cannabis Control
Right,
Commission.
this is all standardized now.
And yeah, the only fillable fields have been vetted now twice, if not 3 times by council. It's the same thing that every other entity that has come in front of us has had, and everything else is boilerplate from the Cannabis
So this is a new business.
This is the entity that's near Gasco on Cape Road, which is currently in operation. It has a host community agreement with the town. And then Cannabis Control Commission, just like JDM and the other one that we did after them, has deemed them no longer compliant with state law. And this is now the from CCC. And then they have since filled this out. So they are an operating ongoing business.
Okay, so it's okay. So it's not exactly a renewal. It's a new. It's a new.
It's new legalese.
And what was in your packet was the nice clean PDF that I have PDF for you all. But what Katie has for the chair to sign is what sent back. So it's already been signed by the entity, and we are the second signatory. Signature's not on the packet, but we have a signature.
How, can I ask how it effectively changed from what we had before? Was there any substantial changes?
Not for us, because Mendon did not have the act fee, the host community agreement.
Yeah, we accepted the standard rate when we did it initially.
There were 2 revenue streams for retail marijuana institutions, which were the local option sales tax, which Mendon did accept, and we have them remitted on a quarterly basis in a way similar to a meals sales tax. And then there was the host community agreement impact fee, which was frustratingly also capped at the same 3%. So lots of communities said, give us 3% of your revenues. The difference was the local option sales tax is paid by the consumer at the point of sale, whereas the host community impact fee was paid by the entity on their gross revenue on a yearly basis. And what it was initially seemingly well-intentioned to say is that marijuana has an outsized impact. Marijuana retail sales will have an outsized impact on your community in an indeterminate way. Localities can levy this fee to mitigate that impact. Essentially, no municipality has been able to quantify that impact and say this is why we levy that fee. Industry groups and individuals have been, state. Mendon, to be clear, had not levied that local impact fee. So the main driver of changes in the HCA, that was community agreement, did not impact Mendon. So what it really spelled out in specificity was what fees these entities would be responsible for, and what council had settled on. What we have in all the previous 2, and now this one is just regular fees levied upon businesses in general. So water, sewer, depending on what they have, and regular municipal fees levied on a quarterly basis. So nothing special. They are treated the same as every other business.
Thank you. Any other questions? Looking for a motion?
I move to approve the Green Era LLC host community agreement.
Second.
Further discussion? Right. All in favor?
Aye.
So then we've already done 10, so we are up to 11, which is discuss the annual town meeting date. And fortunately, we do have our moderator, town moderator here. So I know this came up, I know I discussed with Ellen, so she expects the state to approve our bylaw change that allows that, I think the expectation is that it would be by the end of February. So I don't know, Jeremy, do you have more to say on that?
Yeah, so the bylaw change that was approved at special town meeting was to untether annual town meeting from the first Friday in May and say within the first 2 weeks of May. Something that, so that's whatever article that is, section 1, section 2, says that tethers the town election in a way that general bylaw review committee is reviewing now, because they interact with each other. And so changing one needs to change the other. So I imagine that's going to be something that general bylaw is coming with when he talks about elections and town meeting. So we will likely have. Thank you, Tom. So we will likely have AGO or Attorney General's office approval of the bylaw change untethering town meeting from the first Friday in May. The more practical constraint is that we have town meeting at the schools, and the schools have set their annual calendar with anticipation that we are having town meeting the first Friday. So in discussions with facilities at the school, they conceivably can move things, but right now they have blocked off that day and have other days in the second week of May kind of busy.
Right. And they also have their budget hearing, so they got to back up from our town, make sure they have all their ducks in a row. So they're just looking for a date from us.
So that, and we're kind of the early, so the first Friday in May is May 2nd. So
Yeah.
we're kind of the earliest with that. And so they're keen on that, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. So my recommendation would be to keep it tethered to, or not, keep it set to this Friday.
I like May 2nd. It's a great day.
Comes right after May 1st.
That's right.
I mean, I know there have been some motivation for this change because Friday is, some people have religious observances on Friday night, so that was part of the question that brought this forward in the first place. But it sounds like there is more work that needs to be done sort of far in advance with the school district to work out like having availability for the auditorium.
We ever do it on a weekend and pay for facilities to be there? Is that
Before.
something we've ever considered?
Okay.
We did it once during COVID. It was out on the field.
It was out on the field. Well, everybody remembers that one. That was like the biggest town meeting we ever had.
But I think, I mean, I don't think anyone's suggesting we're not going to move off of the Friday for the reasons we
Right.
brought that forward. I think for this particular cycle, it probably makes the most sense to maintain the practice.
Mhm.
And we've got 12 months to.
Right.
Well, when do they set their schedule?
The school probably thinks we have 4 or 5 months to say.
Yeah, they like set it in June, right? Or sometime like.
Well,
Right, yeah, I think, right.
And the other issue is,
So they literally said in the last subcommittee meeting was that it's probably gonna be that same week anyway, maybe earlier in the week, but don't push it further out. It's sort of what their approach was.
Oh, they don't make it later?
Yeah, I think. it
Like
had that right.
Thursday the 1st instead of.
Anyway, it was just more of, and I don't think we'd want to, but I just think we're talking day of the week was more so than like the general time in May, right? It was sort of which night do we pull it on?
and I think also, I know that the Attorney General was supposed to approve it by the end of February. But what if it doesn't?
So the first Friday in May of 2026 is May 1st. So we have it the first full week of May. It will
So it might be
say,
nice for the, okay.
in terms of relative to June 30th.
I like Wednesday,
Yeah, Wednesday, May.
right in the middle of the week.
So, I mean, I guess another question is, so you've talked with the town moderator. Have you discussed this with the town clerk since, like, later this week, or?
I discussed it with her about 15 seconds after you got off the phone with her.
Okay, okay,
And so, yeah, our collective
okay, all right, and
suggestion
then,
was to keep.
okay, excellent, okay. And then, so, I know there was, so Dan has been doing the clickers and things, but I know that, like, I believe that maybe you and Katie had
So-
shadowed.
Katie had
Shadowed,
shadowed.
okay.
Anticipation is that for springtime, so this was in my TA report, but.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. So 2 days ago, our assistant treasurer / collector / assistant town clerk started, James. was
Yeah.
here for the last whole meeting. So Dan and I talked today about having him also shadow annual town meeting as town clerk style.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So we will have redundancies built.
Excellent, okay. And then, yeah, so is Dan available Friday, May
Yes.
2nd? Okay, great. Okay, and I guess there's also finance committee, so I don't know, but I think if we're not changing it from the sort of what's been established, I think that's fairly safe.
So I have not confirmed with finance committee, but as a creature of the select board and keeping the tradition that the town has had for however many years.
Right. That we're, okay. Might make more sense to ask people about a changed date rather than, okay. The big news is we're probably gonna stick with what we've been doing for all these years.
For at least this.
At least this one last time.
Right, and then the election will be the same standard amount of days afterwards.
So are we ready to set a date? Because I'd welcome a motion if so.
A motion,
Oh, what's that?
May 2nd is the first one.
Yes.
make a motion to set the date of the 2025 annual town meeting to be Friday, May 2nd.
Second.
Further discussion?
The second? I just had to say it. Go
I know, I heard it too. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't get to say aye because I was laughing.
Okay, I was wondering.
I heard it. I did hear it.
So you can still say your
All right, I'm saying my aye.
aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, all right,
So-
so Friday, May 2nd, thank you. Okay. So then, are we on to item 12, the Y25 Q2 budget?
Sure. So. I had asked some folks for some kind of operational metrics. Actually, before we talk, I left it up here. I left it up here, kind of to be honest, we can tie in what we're doing to what we want to do. So in terms of, measurements by departments, I'd actually asked folks earlier in January, excuse me, what are you measuring and how can we use that? So I have a handful of departments here who submitted some stuff. So just in the first 2 quarters, human resources reviewed 127 resumes for 8 open positions, which we don't have anything kind of to gauge that from what is it last year, the year before, what's next year, but I feel like 127 resumes in half a year is quite a few, and 8 open positions for us to have in 6 months is a number. So we onboarded full-time employees, processed 3 voluntary terminations, 2 of which were retirements, and we started the transition to biweekly payroll. Town clerk and elections administer their state and primary elections. Conservation Commission had 13 new applications and collected over $2,000 in fees. They had some updates to the Mendon wetland protections bylaw for the spring annual town meeting, so we'll hopefully see those coming from the commission.
Jeremy, a question on that, the 13 applications, does that equate to the number of sites walked? I'm just kind of curious, because I know that Isabella goes out and there's a lot of,
Yes,
Site-
some of those sidewalks are things that were in.
Instance, so.
yeah, I would think the number of actual physical reviews would be something that would be interesting to demonstrate. I mean, because I think that's a new position. It's not
Right.
something we necessarily had an eye on, that we now have an eye on, you know?
Good point.
Yeah, we can, how many times do we get?
Yeah, because some of those, like an application will come in and they'll do a site walk 3 times over the course of a year or two sometimes, and
I mean, that's sort of the part of the story would want to get out there in terms of, why do you have a conservation agent? Do you realize what that job entails, right?
So one note that the conservation agent was made, position was made full-time in July. So organizing the office and implementing new internal processes. So we have a new permitting numbering system to be able to integrate between planning and conservation for stormwater purposes, which has had a little bit of the impetus behind the inspectional services, right? Just coordinating all that together. So a couple of applicants have had, multiple applicants have had positive feedback about working with an agent who's integrated throughout the process. And we're working, Isabella sent me an email this afternoon about the climate leader designation within the Green Communities Act. So we're actually working with that. She sent me lots of information that I have yet to read. So it's future update. Going down just kind of the chart of accounts. So conservation is 171, police 210 are on budget. They've been kind of on track in terms of expenditures and salaries. Fiscal 20, this jumps a little bit further, but fiscal 26 is a level service budget. There is not an additional position asked in the police budget for fiscal 26. There will likely be an additional patrol officer asked for in addition in fiscal 27, but there is not fiscal 26. Fire, dealing with some building maintenance issues. They were a little bit overexpended on that. And the central account that special town meeting funded in the fall, fire just tapped about half of it for facilities issues. And then we also moved.
was that the roof still?
Their garage door openers were
Okay.
totally tapped in the.
Yeah, it's
fact
pretty
that
required.
You can walk up until last week, you could walk up to the garage doors and just pick them up. Because the motors were totally shot, so we replaced the openers. We're coming back with a capital request to replace the doors themselves. Way higher insulation grade, hopefully help on their fuel bills as well. Their ambulance billing, which I'll get to as well on the finance, is trending well above budget. So we end up having we take in those revenues on the general fund, and then have an expense account to pay for the billing, 4.5% billing. So we recognize the revenues, and as they come in over budget, we don't enjoy the benefit of them until free cash is certified in the following year. But the additional 4.5% on billing, we feel right away. If we had a revolving account, that would be more, we would be able to enjoy the benefit of the revenues immediately as we experience the expenditure right away. So that's something that the chief and I want to explore, the positives and benefits.
What's the scale of that? Like, enjoy the revenues, we're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds? Okay.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
so, right, so there are those expenditures, right, the building piece, the 4.5% of the revenues that come in, but that's really, really minor. The reason why they're recognized in the general fund is the folks who staff the ambulance, the consumables on the ambulance, buying the ambulance is all supported by the general fund. So there would be, this is the part that we're kind of talking about, there would be some sharing of, we would move this half the salary of half the firefighters or some combination to the revolving fund. So just anecdotally, when the chief was a firefighter in Bellingham, half his salary was paid for by the ambulance revolving fund. Just because that's how his position was structured. He was still a full employee of the town with every benefit. There's no change in.
It should have changed in the funding source.
Did they provide metrics for service calls?
In 2024, call volume increased by 11%. So They're up to 1,058 responses in calendar year 2024. 709 medical, 349 fire. It's the busiest, so that was in 2024. It's the busiest first half of the fiscal year that the fire department's had. Like I said, 11% above the same period.
So I'd like to hear from the chief about needs, like breaking down those fire calls and like how much of that was brush versus house, and are there things that are needed? Like I know that a while ago we went and invested in a brush truck to start getting ahead. I don't think it's been delivered yet, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's got a number of pieces that are
Yeah.
pending to be picked up.
So just like where he's at with that sort of strategy, we have a lot of open land. There's a lot of concern about fire, because of the West Coast. And so, where are we on our brush strategy, and how many of those fires were brush that he had to deal with this year?
So I'm gonna conflate my next. So, in the fiscal 2026 capital request, which may be pushed out to fiscal 2027, just kind of cadence of funding, is I think UTV is the term he used.
To get back in there.
To be able to fight that with a trailer behind it. So it's part of my currently handwritten notes about to get into the capital portal after our capital meeting, after our budget meetings, which included capital. But it's a utilitarian vehicle. I don't actually know each of these things.
Utility.
So to
Ultra cool.
be able to do that sort of thing. There's also a request for an inflatable boat with a trailer, to be able to respond.
Good.
So that means 2026.
Yeah.
And staffing is still the major concern within the fire department. So their minimum staffing equals their maximum staffing, which means if someone calls off, they have to call somebody in. If they have two career on, one career calls off, they have to post somebody. Whereas if their minimum staff is 2, and they're able to staff for 3, if somebody calls off, they don't have to backfill them. We will explore that in detail in the fiscal 2026 budget meeting with fire as they're asking for additional FTE. Highway have had a few heavy equipment breakdowns, which have been frustrating for them. Their biggest thing right now, which apparently the recently this board has historically voted on, but their salt budget's about to go into deficit in the snow and ice removal budget. They are about to deliver salt for the upcoming storms. The amount that the department commits to each year in terms of purchasing is equal to what their budget is. So they are going to spend $104,000 in salt each year. This year, so far in snow and ice, has been a lot of the frustrating 1 to 3 inch storms where you salt initially and then have to plow when it gets kind of above that 2-inch stretch. So we use a lot of salt. So we, when Highway sent this, week and a half, 2 weeks ago, they had spent 90,000 of their 104,000, and we're about to order more salt. In my experience, that running snow and ice in deficit is allowable under MGL and did not require either executive or legislative approval. This board wanted to vote to do such, but I want to at least inform the board that we will be running in deficit as of probably next week in our salt budget.
I mean, the budget's for 2 or 3 storms at the most, right? Like, so.
Yeah, so
We always would budget was 75% of the 5-year average.
Yeah.
So right now we're at 194,000 in total in snow and ice. And the way NGL works is that you can deficit spend snow and ice if you budget at least the amount that you budgeted the year before.
We always wanted to maintain our planned budget to be flat and expect to go deficit.
So
That's how
194,000 is healthy for the town. And if you don't get to, if you have a mild winter, which there have been a number of recently, sort of benefit. But,
So that's consumables and labor. right?
Yeah, it's everything. It's maintenance on the trucks afterwards. It's sweeping the salt in the spring when you're done. It's anything that's ancillarily related to snow and ice.
Okay.
And traditionally, we always asked the highway surveyor to give us a heads up when we would vote to allow
Right.
deficit spending.
So
And we usually set a mark for that deficit spending to some extent too.
Well, we normally, rather than, we tell him he could deficit spend, another 25K or 50K, or give us, what do you need? And we would, but it was also, we could be anticipatory and understood where we were at,
So he's about to order $35,000 worth of sand, or salt, sorry. And he's at 95,000, so that's, at least an additional 20,000 in deficit spending. And if you've seen the forecast, where we're likely to get a storm Saturday night, another one mid next week. So we have
Biggest one in 5 years, I hear.
I mean, I think we just want to avoid the situation we ran into, a year ago, where it was, I think we were caught by surprise at how much was ordered. We had to pull back or change the order. Is that right?
We just don't like
So that's
surprises.
reasonable.
But yeah, so right now we've ordered 10 loads, which is about 30 tons, which takes us above and beyond 100. So we're at in the $125,000 range, total. And then depending on what storms look like through the end of February, we may be an additional
Yeah.
10 to 15,000 above that, which is not astronomical, but it's we'll have to make up somewhere. We do have $60,000 in FinCom reserves, so I will remind you that we can raise deficits in the snow and ice budget.
Yeah,
on
it's not-
next year's levy.
Yeah.
Should we have to.
Yeah, it's not.
And we've got free cash for ATM. We might have paid it down going into the, so,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
if
reasonable.
we raise it on next year's levy, that would be extraordinary.
But it's one of the levers we have.
Right.
Something we gotta do.
So we are also, the surveyor is going to attend a snow and ice removal conference in the spring. We're really trying to explore kind of pre-treatment methods and kind of additional efficiencies in terms of routing or methodology or something like that. So this is something I think, something that I think we're gonna have to deal with in uneven measure going forward in the surveyor as well.
Does that mean like snow op systems? I know that that's come up before.
So that means tracking. So I know we have an app that tracks kind of loads around.
Yeah. An app, call it an app.
Or of an app. About methodology, about pre-treatment, about either like the saline pre-treatment.
Yeah, because there's towns around us who are pre-treating.
We used to pre-treat here.
So there's a difference between like the saline, like slurry or whatever. they put down,
Right.
And then pre-treating just straight up with rock salt.
Yeah.
And that's what do that.
Okay.
And he was also saying,
That one used to spray. Didn't he?
I remember John telling us recently that they didn't have the sprayer
Yeah.
tooling anymore, or didn't have it at all. Yeah.
he was also saying that, okay, they're buying right now, sodium chloride that's pre-treated with magnesium chloride.
Right, so they get a
You can
lower
do it a
bill.
lot cheaper yourself if you buy just pure salt and spray it.
Right.
Treat the salt yourself.
So then it becomes a cost benefit of the machinery to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had those exact conversations.
Okay.
And there's street sweepers delivered, so that's important.
Yeah.
So they can sweep the snow off?
Yeah, we get 1 year of this. Delivered December 26th.
Thanks, Christmas present.
It's pretty.
Water's done a lot of work, both kind of on the mains, so we did hydrant repairs, we did inspecting service lines, and we're expecting to get to full inspection within the next 7 years, I remember correctly. So it's a slow but steady process of inspecting our mains. The extended pump test has been completed for our water study, and I have a meeting with planning, Dan with in his capacity as water clerk next week. So I'll update you know about that. And worked out a deal with Hopedale to allow two new commercial water connections along the Cape Road.
Interesting.
So the piece on Hartford Ave and Cape Road, that's just a bunch of weeds there, will have water connection through Hopedale and hopefully increase its viability for development.
I'd like to hear more about that deal at some point.
So yeah, we just added it to the allowable commercial uses.
Okay.
And paid a one-time connection fee of $10,000,
Mm.
which the enterprise fund will pay and then bill the property owner directly.
So are there any stipulations on how much water they're allowed to throw?
Interesting.
I thought that was much more contentious than that, but okay.
Yeah, as it seems like the thing where there's two dogs snarling at each other and then both their chains break and then
Another spacing,
You said there were 2 new connections?
yeah. On 35 Cape, was previous to my interactions on the.
is that the warehouse?
Oh, was that where
Is it the warehouse next to the church?
the old house that was taken
Yeah,
down?
that's,
that was their house. It was a residential.
No, I'm thinking. It's on the corner of Bates.
Mhm.
That one, is that 35?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, on the corner of Bates, absolutely.
okay,
Um,
so that's the.
and then Hartford Ave. So as those.
That's great.
They both
Great.
had old houses that were taken down, so like just to say ambiguous, yeah, so. Yeah, the one on the corner of Hartford Avenue was taken down a while ago, and the one 35 Cape, that was just in the last couple of years, I wanna say.
So in kind of a not direct and not immediate way, but those both provide commercial development opportunities for the town to provide tax revenue.
Interesting.
The Board of Health tracks all sorts of metrics. I'm going to kind of refine those a little bit so we can do year-over-year sorts of stuff, but specifically in terms of waste management, tonnage collection, recycling versus solid waste.
Remembering their booklet they brought last year.
They're very thorough.
That was good.
Very interesting.
The library tracks attendance on their patrons, on their programs. So the library has run 154 programs with 4,623 participants since the beginning of July, which is kind of a remark. When I first read that, and
So can you read it again?
of course, 154 programs with 4,623 participants since the beginning of July, so within the fiscal year. So 4,622 participants.
It's a good average.
Not unique participants.
Right.
But a wonderful amount of engagement in the library. And this is the first year that the full-time children's librarian is being paid from the operating budget and not the state. With the exceptions of Fridays, programs are being run every day of the week, including Mondays and Thursdays when they're typically closed. They're still programming going on. So at 30 hours a week, the library is definitely seeing benefits in terms of program offerings and number of folks attending. So we don't have the prior, at least here, I don't have the prior year numbers to compare that to, but if they get this to me right away, I imagine they have, fiscal 24, we can say what's the difference here.
So it's part of the monthly report that the director gives to the trustees, so I'm sure that if they have those numbers going way back.
So yeah, we just need to take it from.
From there,
Yes,
yeah.
And so the fiscal 26 request is going to include additional 8 hours a week for a library technician and assistant. That would cover 5 hours on Monday mornings, allowing the library to formally open to the public that day. And then some more building maintenance numbers. Parks is doing their field lighting project. They've awarded power and lighting, which ARPA had supported at $10,000, which was great to see, kind of a stacking of funding sources to be able to do this. They're reviewing their summer plans now, and Historic has closed out their grant project with some residual funds left in it, and they're working with the General Bylaw Review Committee on the scenic road stone wall bylaw. Because anecdotally, the general interpretation of that bylaw is different than the actual
yeah, there was a long discussion at the last meeting. About that, and in general, the summation is that people can do whatever they want with their rock walls, except for one very specific situation. In very specific
When they're like
place.
paving or pole setting.
Right, so like my house, I'm 2 houses past level, so that is a scenic byway. So I have a lot of rock walls. If I change my driveway or something, if I change the rock wall, I just have to put it back.
Yeah.
But only the rock wall that is, kind of facing the public, and everything else, you can kind of do whatever. So, yeah, the public expectation needs to match
Right.
what's in the rules.
Yeah, this came up, I remember this came up originally when National Grid was coming by and doing tree maintenance.
Yeah.
Well, can you do that on a scenic road? That protects and not really.
Right.
So-
Since National Grid came and took trees down in my front yard, so they didn't have a problem with it.
Cool, thank you.
So was that the end of the?
It was the end of my 25.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've got,
so far.
yeah, that was some of the metrics that some departments have.
Great.
And in terms of the financial piece of that. So generally, our salaries are tracked. So at the end of Q2, most departments are at the 51% on salaries that generally tracking really well. Some places where we will see savings just due to kind of attrition in assessors and finance department, treasurer collectors, turnover. There are a few places where I have questions after going through this, getting ready for you all. So I flagged them here for myself to get back to.
Good flags.
Yeah, we have roughly $75,000 in equipment and building maintenance, and including that $30,000 in general central building maintenance accounts, especially meeting funded. So I've been really harping on department heads saying, let's spend this. This is, to maintain.
Did you contract out the door yet?
Sorry?
The door?
So the door was at the 12, maybe on Thursday. The door was at
In town
Contact
hall
one.
or?
Right down here, right at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rank.
right, yeah, that door, yes.
the sorry, the fire.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the door is on the list. We've been getting a couple of quotes. It's an odd sized door, so some folks have come and looked at it and said, "I need that." So that's
The one at the top of the ramp?
the treasurer's office.
Okay, yeah.
It's,
Right around.
yeah, it's right on that bottom, but that was essentially the first thing I thought of when I said we should get some central maintenance money is to do that. So we've had some folks here, but nobody who's willing to bid on it. But so I've been harping on department heads. What are your categories? Let's get on it. So fire is taking that up on security prevention, security cameras, on door openers. COA is going to take it up on security cameras as well.
Okay.
The council on aging. Like I said, ambulance service charges are trending well above budget. So halfway through the year, we've collected 70% of what our budget was. So that will add to free cash at the end of the year. Our building permits, so building, gas, plumbing, and electrical permits. The local receipts budget was for $170,000 for the year. And through Q2, we collected $216,000. So that has trended very well and has continued to through Q3 through what our permit activity has been. We have, can't quite tell why, but we budgeted our administrative assistant in the building zoning, zoning board of appeals or planning zoning board of appeals. 50, 50, and 25% across 3 different departments for fiscal 25. So there's 25% is not being charged at all. So at 20 something thousand will fall through to free cash and we'll,
That just,
That's interesting.
yeah, let's track that error down.
So just a question, the revenue that does any of this impact your 26 planning? Any differently than you've already reported?
Not really, because 24 actuals were also above budget, so I've already kind of taken that here. If we budgeted 170 and we had only collected 70, then yes, that would let me kind of reevaluate, but.
So still the 3.5% is what you're thinking.
Correct. The building commissioner has, in his budget submission, we haven't met yet, but indicated, a request to, increase building inspector, both, I don't say wages, but compensation for the inspectors and fees charged for the inspections. So that happen in tandem. He's going to have a proposal for fiscal 26, so we have yet to talk about that, but I just wanted to tell you that was coming for 26. Chief Curtis is on our dispatch line for fiscal 26. We are capped through a state agreement at 120,000 and change, and that goes through year 8 of our agreement with the MEC, the Medicom Emergency Communication Center, and I believe we're in year 5. So that would be capped for us. We have other costs associated with dispatch, kind of locally, some maintenance contracts and whatnot. So our dispatch costs will be capped at $120,000. Our total cost is about $160,000. So that trends on budget almost by default.
So you don't expect any surprises with dispatch? Because I know we had one last year that was unexpected.
No. Dave, are you, Chief Curtis, are you there to talk about dispatch at all?
Yeah, I'm here. So last year, the surprise pretty much was just the funding formula. Went up to, so this is year 5. Last year, we went up to 75%, and we've always been capped at 120. The thing was that the 75% was more than 120 once they did the assessments. So we got leveled off at 120. I think, Jeremy, what you were speaking about earlier is I did get something from the MEC stating that our assessment this year is like 165. I had a conversation with the director, not the director, the new deputy director, because they have a new director, but the deputy director who handles finances, and he's well aware of everything from last year. We have the emails, the agreements from the state that we're all the way till year 8 at 120. He's going to deal with the director and Jeremy to in the future to negotiate or talk about that. But he's in a total agreement with us till year 8. We're at 120. That was the deal.
And there are discussions at the MEC right now about further regionalization with other communities and other regional dispatch partners, all of which involve discussions on governance structure and funding structure. Every possible solution going forward is a cost savings versus what our current contributions to MEC are. So then it becomes a non-financial kind of equation, but more of an operational one for police and fire. But those are all ongoing. But I and most folks involved expect within the next handful of years that there will be a greater regionalization, and the MEC will look different 5 years from now than it does right now. And then a big thing that's a question for fiscal 26, but also becomes a question for fiscal 25 is our health insurance number. So in terms of other insurance, our workers' comp, our unemployment, all sorts of our insurance numbers are trending well. But our health insurance number halfway through the year, we spent almost 59% of our health insurance budget. So as we end Q3 and see kind of how that levels off, because we've had some folks leave, we'll see what we may need a further infusion there. And to remind everyone, we take who's essentially the budget is set before open enrollment happens. We don't do open enrollment until we get our rate. We need to set our budget before we get the rate. So it becomes an approximation. And if we have someone come on a rural family plan, the most expensive version is $30,000+ for the town. So that can throw us off a good percent. So we'll revisit that, but that's probably our biggest area of concern. Salaries, expenditures, fixed costs, even our variable costs like like fuel and utilities are trending well. So I think we're in a good spot. I think we have a lot of good budget managers who understand, hold off on some stuff until the end of the fiscal year to make sure we can do what we need to do first. So that's where we're at. 25.
Okay, so that was the end of 12, right? And we a little bit bumped into 13, so, but now formally, we're gonna move on to 13. Do you have additional things for
Yeah, that's.
FY 26 budget status?
So fiscal 26, so we're still in the early stage. I've done budget meetings this week. We'll do them next week as well. And I'll get the school's number. But we're looking, like I said, so much of our overall revenue is local property tax, right? We're looking at 82% this year being local property tax. So we have a really stable revenue base. The governor filed House 1, which has, $638,000 worth of state aid for us, which is a 2+% upgrade from the year before. 4%, but it's still small numbers in terms of. I had asked department heads to be maximalist in their asks, so we're seeing a lot of additional position ads. Full-time planning position, up from the 4 that we have right now. Multiple additional fire FTE. I think there's some more aspirational ones that we'll talk about as we get through budget meetings. But my general approach right now has been have an initial meeting with every department and not be critical about their asks, but try to understand what they're asking. And then where there's the additional asks, ask them to fill out this one pager. What's the marginal cost? Where's the account? What time is not here? And then we have these additional asks, and the additional asks that are not, I need $200 because we have or something. But where it's the bigger things to have follow-up meetings and say, let's analyze this in terms of the broader budget. Because right now I'm not doing it for my not my recommendation for you all. I'm doing it to understand them, and we'll have follow-up meetings so I can have a recommendation to this board. Then we can have all. So in terms of where we're at, we're likely hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in the hole, but that's kind of typical for this part of the budget process, especially when I've asked folks.
That's a quite swath.
Hundreds, millions.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just money.
It's just a decimal point.
All of a sudden, we're talking about money. But I think department has done a really good job of saying, even just today, I met with highway and parks kind of back to back. I asked for a level service budget, not a level funded one, and they're 7 or 8% higher than they were last year to do the same stuff. Over the last 5 years, line paintings went from 5 cents a linear foot to 9.5 cents. So to do the same amount of linear feet, it costs almost twice as much. So just extrapolate that out for how many things you want to, and stuff more expensive. So it becomes, do you want to provide the same level of service? Can we provide the same level of service within Prop 2.5? And those could be the hardest. So that's where we're at with 26. I'm supposed to meet with schools tomorrow. The school's just closed. So we're having a virtual meeting tomorrow. We will meet in person early next week before the multi-board meeting, and we'll get a number from them. I'm going to take a tour at BPT in a week or two, meet with Dr. Fitzpatrick and talk about just BPT funding generally. We've had 2 folks graduate from Norfolk Aggie this year. So we've got 6 current students plus however many freshmen applied. They're too early in their procedure, so we're carrying an estimate there until we can get some. And then as the House and the Senate. So typically the House is more generous than the governor, the Senate's more generous than the House. So we come up, I typically like to take the House number if we have it by the time we present the budget. And there, so hopefully we'll have a little bit better on state aid. But really it's going to come down to what schools ask.
there anything we should do to prepare for the Wednesday meeting?
Wednesday is largely on capital ask, next Wednesday, so the schools will have two separate capital asks. One for roof replacement in Monk High, which is funded partially through MSBA. Just remind you all and everyone who's listening that the debt, so this is the debt exclusion. When you ask for a debt exclusion for an MSBA project, you ask for the entire number. The MSBA funds part of it, but you have to authorize the whole. So if you authorize $10 million and the MSBA is covering 2 million, 3 million, you still have to authorize the full 10, not the 7. And then they have a separate capital ask for athletic fields and other ancillary projects at their buildings. We'll discuss. I don't have any particular documentation as far from ballot language, which is less descriptive than what I just said. But it is generally talking about, and then I just forgot, there will be 4 to 5 FinCom members there as well, from Mendon. It will be at least 4 members of FinCom who are in attendance.
Great.
And then I'll be there. And it will be a Zoom webinar format and also a live broadcast on YouTube. It's in May 26th.
Okay. All right, so, right, so that was, you finished up with number 13 there? Okay, so then 14, is there an Old Salt Box Road update?
Yes, so we don't have anything signed, but we have been back and forth with both Karis and Mazar, Town Council, Karis North and CPC Chair Ann Mazar about the signatories on signatory page, which is something I've been saying for 2 or 3 meetings now. But we've had communication today on specific steps on how to do those. So the last kind of 2 or 3 meetings, there hasn't been a lot of updates. Today it's the kind of same update, but actually actual steps from council.
Okay, thank you. Well, hopefully, next time. Soon. It'd be nice to have that complete at some point.
Yeah.
It's like the asymptote, we keep getting closer without actually reaching it. So then are we on to select board 15, select board policies and procedures?
The same seen as paradox here. So town council has committed to the end of next week for, so
Maybe for our February 19th meeting, okay.
Do we have any sort of feeling or temperature yet? Are there gonna be a bunch of edits that we have to do, or so far so good?
that's speaking for her, I'm not sure. She had,
Yeah.
Right, okay. So then 16 is the financial policy review?
Yeah, so I sent that to you earlier today. So there are 3 documents which I briefly contextualize. So there is the financial policies, current or original, whatever I called it, and that is a somewhat outdated document, but approved by this board.
Was it?
I
I don't know that it ever was.
I don't
formally
know,
approved.
by this makeup of the board, but
definitely not to make.
About 10, it's more than 10 years old,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that was the last update.
Okay,
That was what I attempted to redline, and it became,
more red than
Yeah.
anything else.
yeah, it was.
Board, my memory was the board was in the process. I was a member of the FinCom, and then one of the members of the board, the select board, resigned. And along with his resignation, stopped any forward progress on it.
Yeah, I mean, my impression was that it was never adopted,
Right.
the draft. I mean, I had seen a draft of it at some point.
It was never adopted. It was never adopted.
I think you might be talking about the other.
Oh.
The insurance offer. I don't know.
Okay, yeah,
I'm,
well,
at the end of the day, there's nothing in effect that was voted by.
So there's one more kind of policy driven and one more kind of procedure driven.
Mhm.
So the policy driven one and tried to reimagine and said, instead, I'm just gonna write my own thing. And I took a lot of what was in the original one, because it was, good and sensible stuff. but I wanted some more concrete things like, general stabilization shall be
So what-
5 and 7%.
Was there stuff about snow and ice removal in that? Was that where, I've read it somewhere recently. Was that in what you?
I
Yes,
wrote, yeah.
yes. Okay, because that's what I was, I'm like, I know I was just reading about this. What was I just reading about? So it was in that. Yes, okay.
So the
good.
one that's labeled JPS underscore.
Yeah.
Or underscore JPS, whatever it was, that's the one that I wrote.
Okay,
So that's the one we should be reading and saying, what do we need to add or subtract from this from a policy perspective?
Mhm.
And there's a third document called the Financial Operations Manual, which has been authored by town accountant, Eric Kincher.
Mhm.
This is a very detailed, more procedures manual on how do you get a reimbursement? What is the process for using the town credit, that sort of thing? How do you go about setting the tax rate? Who's responsible for what? And that's to make sure the trains are on time. And the other one's to, kind of fix the time of the trains, whatever. And so what Eric, the town accountant, has written, references NGL, references DLS studies. And I imagine he uses for many of his clients that it's very universally applied. So what I did was went through and made a number of comments, tightened up the reimbursement procedure a little bit to better reflect my previous experience with these policies, and a few other ones, and then kind of tagged the treasurer and assessor and said, this is what our town accountant is saying, how to, what are your inputs for our lived experience and what we actually do here. So that's where that one's at. The procedure is kind of on the staff review. So take a look at it, see, make sure it, there's nothing nonsensical for you all, but we're on kind of a staff review of the procedures.
I mean, I would think our focus really should be on the policy document and defer to you and the team to put the operational in place to support the policy.
I will say, just for transparency on it, the Eric Kincher authored document has been what's been kind of handed out publicly. So these are our policies. And we have a massive draft watermark in the background. So I still think at some point the board should vote to formalize these.
For sure.
And and then that gives the treasurer collector and I were talking recently about how do we both rein in a couple of the credit cards that do exist in town, and then apply, and have a more centralized credit card for folks to be able to use to, their hotels surrounding Main Street and through like reimbursement, sort of things. And the treasurer collector had lots of opinions on that, and I want to make sure that the way she wants to implement that is the same way our policy said it, so to speak. And that it also is the same way this board wants it. But the policy wise, exactly right, like we should fund OPEB at the same level, the OPEB trust, at the same level we funded last year, plus the same percentage of the general fund increases, so to keep it up with the general fund inflation. So things like that. So take a look at those, and also add things that I may not have.
All right, so this is our first pass at it. So like, we will get feedback to you, and then at some point it will get sent to town council. Is that what, is this another policy manual that will be, based on the select board policy manual that we would be sending things to review to town council? Is that the aspiration, intention, or do we want, like?
I think having our finance team review finance policies
Okay,
likely be sufficient. And
okay,
lots of them reference NGLs within them.
okay.
I would, and so when you say the general fund, just because I wrote this in the second line, when you say the general purpose stabilization should be 5 to 7%, like that's not something town council needs to opine on. That's a
Right.
policy objective of.
Right, okay, okay. And then I know I looked at it, but is there the sort of standard verbiage that it's, state and federal laws are like,
Trumpet.
yeah, whatever the verbiage was in the other policy manuals,
Yeah, there is not, but.
it could, because that's sort of, I feel like if that's in there, that. I don't, yeah, so,
We can make sure. I don't believe it is currently. That's good.
okay,
Can I just two points First, we have a standing offer from DLS, Division of Local Services, who came in here 2 years ago and actually did a review for us, a financial review for us. That, and they actually have resources and have those materials and offered to help with a review of any of that if it's necessary. And I think you know them better than I do, right? You have a.
And Eric, the town accountant, Kinshir's, procedures manual references DLS best practices.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would, and the other piece, my only request is if you review the last few years of the management letter that the audit has done. And please be sure that all of the bases are covered. We don't have another audit letter that says that there are things that need to be done, which of course, the biggest thing that audit letter said was we need to have approved financial policies. Yes.
Be able to incorporate the capital planning information into the financial.
I believe what I said was it will be part of the budget structure, but there's not specific dates for it.
I think the document that was put together is a combination of procedure and policy. So that within that, it's only like 3 pages, whatever it is. Might need to separate some of that out into either one of the 2 documents.
So I think what definitely didn't do it as explicitly as you said here. So I think what would be more useful is to separate the policy out of that, put it into the financial policies, and then reference the procedure and have this board also pass the procedure. Right.
All right, so do you have a requested timeline for us for getting you feedback on this?
So we're gonna have a board meeting in March, scheduled yet, I talked about that on the 19th, which is what. So we have a meeting on the 19th, if you can give me comments by the 19th.
Okay.
I can incorporate them for our meeting following.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right, any other questions about the financial policy draft? Then I think on to 17, town administrator report. Great.
It's
You need different hats for each section.
So this Saturday, there is a congressional information session and question and answer with Congressman Jay Dockencloss at 2:15 here in Mendon.
At Misco.
The office has asked folks to RSVP to their Eventbrite thing, so they know how money. It's free event, open to the public, everybody's welcome. But if you check out the Town of Mendon Facebook page, if you go to Eventbrite and check out the Congressman, or go to his page, you can find stuff. But yes, at Misco.
If you register, they send it to you.
In terms of, I want to get by the way, first,
Yeah.
policy, personnel policy is kind of ongoing, our HR coordinator. Not committing to a date yet, but of course, within the next few meetings, and certainly within fiscal 2025, so the board has the time to review and then approve it. We'll have a revised personnel policy. In the HR vein, comp class study, the cadence of the study was to do a questionnaire, which I believe I talked about last time, which was very helpful in terms of what you spend your time on versus what's actually the most important, what your supervision, both exercised and received. One of the questions was, if you make an error, what are the consequences of it? Which I thought was an interesting way to kind of think about the gravity of your job. So those questionnaires, every questionnaire has been returned. And we are now on the interviewing. Consultant will interview one or more folks within a job description. Go over the questionnaire in more detail, end up with a job description at the end, and then we go and we ask entities about their similar rated positions and then do the analytics from there. So we are looking at May to June completion. I'll drill down after we.
Keep asking you that.
After we do the interview. So it was all, we were a few days late on getting the last hangers on the floor for questionnaires and then interviews. I imagine some folks push out, and then we're really beholden to how quickly our peers answer us. So it's a bit spongy. We kicked off our study with our senior center municipal building evaluation with our firm. So we selected Abacus Architects and Planners as our firm. So we had a kickoff meeting I believe last week where we met here with members of the senior community center building committee and council on aging, self, toward the existing senior center. Didn't go to the place where the North Ave where we proposed covered in snow. We're not really kind of talking about that, but we went to the library to kind of evaluate what a community room, which has already been postulated by a consultant there, how to expand that community room to a bigger space, and went to Morrison Drive to evaluate that position. We are in kind of the data and document dump to our consultants right now. And they're going to take site plans, building plans, utilities, and also every sort of analytical approach to say, what would it cost and how can we accomplish the senior center's desired needs in these spaces? And then they then offer a list of other timeline parcels and kind of carte blanche to say, where can we test fit a square footage that would work for the senior center. So we're at that really early stage where we're gonna have.
Have they been given a budget target? Or is it?
We have a not to, so we have a not to exceed amount of floor pipe. Sorry.
No, I mean for the
Total project,
Less than the last.
9,999,000.
So
They take $1 million off because we're not gonna get federal government at this point.
yeah, so we have, but similar to MSBA, we need to.
do the
pass
full.
that.
Sure.
No, we haven't done that. If this board wants to give direction to the group,
That's.
I would open it. My direction had been less than we asked for before.
Right,
With
well,
the-
yeah, I mean, but I mean, to some extent is to find out like how much it would cost to do say an expansion at the current site, right? So, or not so much coming up with I didn't think it was about coming up with a specific proposal.
Yeah, so I guess there's two ways to slice it. Either say, give us a number and what do we get, or
Yeah.
what do we want? How much would it cost us? I'm sorry, they have not been given direction one way or the other.
Right.
So,
I mean, I guess, one other question is like, what do they think that a town of our size needs for a senior center? Because I think that, I mean, I don't know if that is a question that is being posed to them.
So they've done a lot of work with senior centers, and there's kind of I don't want to say the specific thresholds that they're think of, but there's a large swath of sizing of communities where you quote unquote need or to accomplish your basic function, need a certain square footage. It doesn't matter if you're 6,000 people or 12,000.
Okay.
You need to say 9,000 square feet.
Right.
To do. And whereas a place like Attleboro, they only, they're 9 times the size of here, but they needed 16,000 square feet to accomplish their senior center, which is less than double what we think. So there is a very high floor regardless. Which is
Right.
Yeah, there's a minimum
buy.
It's like fire.
It's just saying.
Fire suppression.
So that's just, yeah, that's the cost, just in addition square footage. It's either,
Okay.
you need your most first, or you need your garage.
The
you need
kitchen.
your-
But
Yeah.
I think they're gonna compartmentalize some of the costs. So Brent, when you think about it, you could see something that is total cost in, but allow us to understand what is the impact of having the food pantry as part of that structure. And you could kind of.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to
Yeah.
get to.
So the emergency
So
management.
that's the way it was set up, I believe, in the programming, right?
So 100%, especially with the emergency management piece, and because it was, as part of the.
So I'm good with that.
Commission,
Yeah.
was part of the kickoff too, and it's something we talked about. But I think it's really important for the community to understand that if it doesn't, if we pull it off of the senior community center new build, it creates a cost somewhere.
Yes.
Because right now the senior center does function as that. So if we don't put that in the new space, it needs to function.
Yeah, I mean, I think with emergency management, the thought was you do today, heating and cooling, et cetera, but possibly the idea of, housing for X number of people, full showers and things like that, that may be something we've got to kind of carve out, and look for an alternative, right? But we should have the flexibility to understand, what the modules could be.
Yeah, exactly. So people can just say, hey, for a budget of this, what modules can we include?
Well, also, like, if you take out those components and bring them to other buildings, they're still cost money, but then of the other that other location then benefits from the reuse of that individual space. So if there are two, places looking, if we're looking to expand emergency management and housing, which isn't going to be used most of the time, and you can use that also for community meeting space, and that can be attached to a library or the police station or the town hall, then that isn't necessarily 100% to the.
Right. I mean, that's the way they wanted
Costs.
the programming,
Right.
even office space, saying, well, maybe veterans can work out of town hall, have some space here that may not be fully utilized, rather than trying to carve out
Yeah.
a location
Exactly.
there. So I think they were trying to be as flexible as possible in terms of the needs assessment and what that kind of could be looked at to give these folks
Yeah.
needs, but not prescriptive, I guess is what I would say.
The first of all is take the programmatic asks. From what's all the work that's been done so far, and then kind of, like you said, make it modular, slice it.
Are they able to give recommendations, say, Morrison Drive, that's like for, not just for whether it could be used for this one purpose, but just recommendations for purposes?
That's something that Dan Fire and I talked about today. Without giving the game away. But Morrison Drive right now is studs and a building. And when you build a brand new building for a senior center, those are not the most expensive parts of it. So what's there does not get us most of the way. My anticipation is that the cost benefit of that facility is not necessarily probably. I want to see it penciled out,
Right.
to be able to say that with confidence, but square footage isn't enough, the access, the site works a lot, the utilities aren't there, there's nothing interior.
I mean,
There's no slab.
the focus of the exercise in my mind is what we've talked about is saying, we at least need to articulate what these alternatives are and how much they cost, so it's not a black, this
Black box.
space where people can say, why didn't we do it there? We can say, here, 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 and here,
Because it costs $20 million.
Yeah.
Workspace.
Yes.
So, as we were leaving the site, the architects were a bit like, trying to be polite. This isn't going to work. And so I said, can you tell us, to your exact point?
Yeah.
But what would work?
Right.
Sort of thing.
And yeah, I mean,
They were like
some sort of
space.
specification, like even an estimate of like a use and, approximate cost to get us to that use, I don't know.
And they think about things in ways that I didn't, right? They're like, you have a narrow, long building without a lot of natural light, no ability to go backwards, so you'd have to build a longer building. I was like, oh, I kind of just didn't think. right? And think about those things. Talk about the useful aspects of the building.
Right.
You don't need an elevator, but like you need all of these other things.
Right.
So as we were walking away, we were talking about what it's a good use of this building. to Get professionals. Right.
Good.
On a much narrower note, the town hall is going to be closed from 9 to 12, I believe the times are, on Tuesday, the 11th. We are doing CPR training for town hall employees. We're going to expand that out to, from 9 to 12. We're going to expand that out to other, we can only do so many folks at a time, so we're going to have library and COA do that at other times, but we're getting one of the town hall CPR trainings.
Would that include a review of like the DFib?
The AED machine down there?
Yeah, because we talked about that, last year, right? That would be good to make sure that when they work, too, that people know how to
So
use it.
we have added town halls AD to lease review in
Yeah.
terms of putting the so the pads, the batteries expire on a prescribed and known basis, so that will be updated by the lease and fire has the rest of them on there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because there was a question, I know actually from a citizen saying, well, do people know how to use them?
Right. And the actual answer was, it was actually the previous chief, fire chief, that's how long ago it was.
Right.
And he had said that, they're so standardized now that he would be glad to go over it with anybody who wanted to know how to use it.
For the
But every CPR training I've ever gone to, I've gone to a lot of, the AED is always an integral part.
I took it about 2 years ago and the AED was part of it as well. So I don't want to say how many people here know how to use it, but I would say. We've recently engaged with a consultant called Spyglass to do a telecom billing review. Principally, Katie's already done a lot of this, kind of picking off low hanging fruit of why are we paying for this thing we're not using. But there's a lot of that, I imagine we have. So this firm comes in and reviews all of our lines, our services, our licenses, everything. And then any one-time charges we've been charged. And if they get us a refund for any one-time charge, they bill us for half of that and we enjoy half of it. Stuff we never would have went back and got. And then if they eliminate a line, well, if they suggest eliminating a line, we do. They ask for a payment of a year's worth of that line. And then after a year, we just enjoy the benefit of paying for it. So they're one of those consultants that has followed me around through different employers and 2 employers ago, it like didn't make a lot of sense for me. At the sheriff's office, there's a lot of ways that it made a lot of sense. And here, I think there's a little bit of benefit to be gained from it. So
Is there like no upfront payment? So it's just like a savings sharing kind of arrangement?
I spent a lot of time at the Verizon booth at Connect 351 grilling those guys.
like we have
Did you make
Verizon,
it, Brian?
Comcast. and
I tried.
Like and we're.
They didn't give you
They
a
did
toothbrush.
not give in.
They didn't
but-
give you a toothbrush.
No, they didn't give me a toothbrush.
And the reason I think it has legs here is because we're organized in the way we procure and pay for services.
Mhm.
So I don't see every Verizon bill until it's already paid, which doesn't help. So I think there's legs here, even if it's small now. I think it's, like we said, there's no upfront. There's no upfront cost. So it's just saving share. And the reason I bring it up now is because I've asked a number of departments. It's a multi-department effort to get access to these. I had hoped to have my memo about our goals meeting for this meeting. I didn't do it. The multi-board meeting on the 12th, you all said you were going to attend, which is excellent, so we'll post that. At least 4 FinCom members will be there. And this week and the end of last has been largely budget meeting. Yeah, this weekend and the last have done largely budget meetings. Which are ongoing, I should talk a little bit about before on fiscal 2026 stuff. So I will get a proposed schedule of budget meetings to you all, but I want to talk about, so we've got the multi-board meeting on the 12th, a regular meeting on the 19th. So what makes sense to you all for budget meetings with department heads? How many nights do you want to dedicate to this? Can we go beyond Wednesdays? Are we just Wednesdays? We have to get FinCom, should get FinCom to be able to do it at the same time.
Could we look to try to go to like multiple evenings within the same week, knock it out? Like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, or something like that, or Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah, I teach in Boston on Tuesday and Thursday, so, yeah.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Well, my point is, rather than trying to, vertically stretch these things out until you're closer to a deadline, I wonder if we can just go horizontally within a week and kind of,
Yeah.
get through the process. Or 2 weeks,
Yeah.
How about 2 Monday, Wednesdays?
yeah, something like that.
We could, 4 meetings is definitely enough.
I'm pretty sure we had 5 or 6 last year.
Because I kind of like keeping it to Wednesdays because I just kind of block them out.
Yeah.
And Mondays, there's sometimes school committee meetings.
Yeah, I'm just remembering the 11:30 nights.
Right,
I'd
Well-
rather not do-
but I think that Jeremy has ideas about how to stack these. I think there was,
If you can
We did
optimize the
a good
time.
mix last time. We put a lot of the larger budgets together in the same
I think,
evenings.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
Not
it's not really fair for them to sit.
that way it just ended up being circumstances led to it being that way, that perhaps we can plan differently this year. I think those were long meetings.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be some.
Right,
Most well planned out.
right.
So if we're looking at May 2nd is town meeting. So we don't want multiple weeks. So we probably don't want to go past the 3rd week in March to have deliberative sorts of meetings here. So
that's the
19th would be kind of the last time I would want changes or.
right.
So you're saying we gotta get that done by the middle of March.
So if you want to do, so the 5th, 12th, and 19th, we have 3 Wednesday meetings. We can add an additional one before that, the 19th, and again, the 19th is kind of the last time I want to do that.
I might suggest trying to do it in the first 2 weeks and the 19th is just in case.
Catch off.
Yeah, overflow.
Yeah, I can do Monday. You're talking about trying to squeeze them all into the first couple weeks of March?
So like the 3rd, the 5th, the 10th, the 12th. That's a Monday, wasn't Monday, Wednesday.
That would be fine for me. Picking it Thursday.
Yeah. And then, I think there might be a school committee meeting on the 10th, but I don't have to go to that, so.
I'll be out of town on the 10th.
Out of town and unavailable remotely.
I can probably be available remotely.
If we were to
90% chance.
maybe just confirm, get back and confirm, but if you do those 4 dates, then you can also lay out what the schedule would look like. So which departments and which days, maybe, those that are going to be the largest discussions, possibly keep to Wednesdays, since those are probably already booked on our calendars.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Something like that.
So definitely we're doing parks and highway, we talked about facilities and maintenance, suggestion, which are going to be big. Fires asking for a lot, police is a big budget, but they're not asking for anything, so that'll actually. Relative to other police years will be a small discussion.
Yeah, I'd like fire to happen earlier in the night. Whenever that is, just so that they get our undivided attention.
I like to think anybody who's meeting with us gets my fully undivided attention.
I if you're asking for a large
You don't want it to
discussion,
be at 10 at night.
I don't want it to be tenuous because we're tired.
Yeah, and the longer the meeting goes, the more we try to rush things because we're trying to get it back.
Right. So I just want them to
I
have
just
their
want to
fair
say to
chance.
everybody out there presenting a budget, you have our full attention.
I
We will
don't
not,
disagree.
and nobody's more important than anyone else. It's all the same pot of money.
Maybe to Jason's point is, if you know there's sort of a larger ask,
Yeah.
maybe have those, right, some of them, maybe they're all equally important, but maybe not as difficult to process.
It's about the difficulty
The
of the
complexity of
conversation,
the- Yeah,
not about what's happening. But who's there.
and so the 26th, sorry, February 26th, is that too soon to start these meetings? Because we talked about the first 2 weeks in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's ready.
Yeah, can you all it's a Wednesday, so can you all tentatively pull that and we can
Yeah, I was supposed to get
That would make
barbecue,
like
but.
12 Wednesday.
I got
bro.
well, then we would have to do the 19th.
Yeah, I think, if someone's ready, that would be good.
And
You mean the 19th of March? Yeah, because we're already doing the 19th of February.
so you all want to talk to every department?
I'd like a presentation from them. I mean, that's historically what's been done.
That was my anticipation, but there's going to be some that say make any changes.
I mean, they should have a chance to talk to us.
If they don't want, if
Everybody has the opportunity.
they have the opportunity, but if they defer to you and you're just like, yeah, I mean, to some extent, whatever, say, fire asked for, I'm assuming that's gonna change from your initial discussion to what's presented to us. And the chief will present it to us, but I'm assuming that's also gonna be a budget that you're probably in a position to support as he presents it to us, correct?
The bigger, more complicated one. I mean, initial discussion will have secondary, what we collectively
Right.
kind of want to say. And then there are ones more like. Like HR is not a complicated budget. So it may just be even just. I wouldn't want to have fire percent for an hour and a half and then HR percent for five minutes, right? We won't have-
Yes, I want you to make it perfect for everybody.
Doesn't have to be compulsory. If they're fine with deferring, then.
And I'm also assuming there's gonna be some sort of, in the end, at the end of the day, we probably do not have revenue to do everything that everybody's asking for. So, and to some extent, there's gonna be, some of the last year's gonna be, we can do this and this, or that, here's sort of the things we, at some point, we summarize decisions that need to be made, we will need to make, right?
I said this to a few folks today, there's like 10 things I say constantly. And like one of them is you can afford anything, not everything. So,
I haven't heard that before.
so my other one was too, so one of my favorite one is, so I have three things on which I would say, you can afford anything, you just can't afford everything. In terms of like where we budgeted, like administrative assistance, I would say, it's just different pockets, same pair of hands, like I don't care where exactly budgeted, it's, we need to drop the money somewhere. And then the other thing is like, don't tell me what your values are, show me your budget, tell you what your values are. So like, put your money behind. So I say this to, in some iteration or another, to budget managers. So we'll go through the non-complicated ones, and perhaps it's just a short memo on no changes or inflationary changes or something like that. But we'll get a schedule together by the 19th. We'll have something. If we're ready for the 26th, I'd love to advance that just to give us a little more time to put together.
And I mean, the schools will be the wild card, because they're gonna come to you with sort of a date where they're gonna wanna present to us too. So you probably know that next week.
Yeah, I mean, I was planning to meet with Jim tomorrow, to fire schools tomorrow, so we'll meet remotely, hopefully I'll meet Maureen remotely, so hopefully I'll be able to meet with Jay after that. But if not, by Tuesday, definitely before. I know I worked with the regional school district, but I know the general gist is based upon the required minimum loan contribution. And that's a complicated formula based upon your demographics and your local property value and your number of students in the schools. And relative to last year, Upton's required minimum contribution went up more than ours did. So they're looking for a little relief, and I don't know how much we can reasonably or should reasonably.
Like an adjustment to the formula?
We
So-
can't adjust the formula, but
No.
last year they, the school budget basically, was slanted towards what we could give. So to some extent, we actually Upton had a relief because they could have given more, but because we said, this is our number, we became the pivot for the rest of the budget.
Right.
That's generally the way it's been,
We were
tend to be a
driving the
little.
bus. We were driving the bus
Well, I don't like to put it that
from
way.
that perspective.
You know, it's, I'd say we're
Well, I'm
partnering, and
repeating
collaborating in a positive way to come to a budget that meets the school's needs. That's what I like to say. But, you know,
Those
if
are
that's driving the
political
bus.
words.
I didn't come up with the phrase, I just.
I just got on the bus.
I think they might be looking, hoping we do more than we did last year to help.
Hmm.
That's my guess.
And so what is the hope as far as, so we hope to have had all of those presentations by the 12th and then March 12th and then possibly March 19th? If
Yeah.
there's like overflow?
Yeah, my working goal is to finish presentations on it.
Okay. And then, so when, I guess we would also be building in that time and we're like evaluating all of them more, like, once we know what all of them are, like, there will be some revisiting of the whole budget, and
So-
when will that be?
Yeah, so generally what I'll try to do is to say, this is our kind of level service budget, and that will be within our revenue availability, and then there'll be a call out list. This account, this much marginal account, this much marginal amount, this item, right? Fire, 51100 salaries, 4 FTE, 287, sure. Whatever it is. And
That's a
then
made up number, right?
we can- Yeah. And we can go through, look at that.
Okay, just a question. Because you might be doing it differently than we've seen it done in the past, as I hear that. Because generally, we usually get presented with a budget that shows a massive hole in the budget. And then we try to figure out how to close
Fill
that
it.
hole, but it sounds like what I thought I almost heard was like, we're gonna get this budget that's within level service, which would you expect that to be a balanced budget? And they're gonna have a bunch of asks over here to see if we can work them in?
I think if our budget's this bucket,
Yeah.
level service is gonna fill 85% of it.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna say, here's another 25%, and I'm gonna call that additional 25% out. And there'll be kind of a running kind of tab to say, of this $1.5 million in asks, we can afford 750,000. How do we want to configure this? And we can.
But you, which is nice, you're starting us with sort of we do have a balanced budget.
Yeah.
We've got to resolve these additional service enhancements.
So what I don't want you to say is, should we be cutting $50 in postage from the conservation?
Right, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and
But I like that. I like kind of.
so there's.
It's more positive.
Of course.
Let's start.
Yeah, yeah, when you
So-
see.
Yeah, you're not shaping the couch cushions, you're not deciding what to
Okay.
add. Which is, and I don't want to get too rosy, it may be, here's $4 million in ask, and you get to add 100,000. It may be.
Keep it rosy, this is
Yeah.
preliminary.
Just lower expectations.
But yeah, that'll be the kind of general approach that we can do everything we did last year, and then what do you want to?
Old toilet seats. It's good reasonable spending of money. Well, I mean, it
See, this
does,
is what you mean about meetings later in the evening.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do you want all the dad jokes to come out or just some of
Not
them?
really.
I mean, it does sound like you looking to capture this process and checklist it next year.
Yeah.
Is that like? part
Yeah,
of your
because it kind
thinking?
of just exists.
Yeah.
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 So. That's,
Is that it? And, is that the end of your town administrative report? Or might be more. That was just the end of that part. of
But
it.
wait, there's more.
yeah, just in a budget meeting.
Question back to the, comp class, getting luck from Collins Center and producing the 2015 job descriptions.
I pinged her about it and she honestly, she might have contacted me.
I just want that baseline.
Yeah.
They're 10 years old, but yeah, it's still something.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I think I'm getting.
The last time they did this study for us, they produced, just like they're gonna do
Oh,
this
yeah,
time,
yeah.
job description. So I'm saying,
Right,
let's, I know I've seen various things out on the, I said, can they give us a full nice new set? This is what we gave you in 2015. And in 2025, you can say, oh, yeah, jobs actually changed in the interviews.
Starts at least be one. So there's a bunch of boxes in my office, with various agent files. And one of them is a 1999 station classification study on the source page 3 of this one. So it's been compared to that.
As long as there's no odor coming out of it.
Yeah, that's the end.
That was a fun time.
Sorry, that's the end for the town administrator report? Okay, excellent.
You're entertaining motions.
Great. Okay, so then we're on to 18 future agenda items. Jeremy, did you want, I mean, you see, we're gonna hear an update on the pavement study?
Yeah, I wanted to keep this on here, not because it's coming in the meeting or the next meeting after that, but we'll bring the highway surveyor in at some point, to talk about, chapter 90 and talk about, the additional $250,000 that town meeting appropriated for roads. I had my budget meeting with him today, so I asked him about this specifically. The Plan 1A is a full depth reclamation of Hartford Ave, from Neck Hill Road to Bellingham Town Line. Which is a full depth reclamation is more expensive than the kind of resurfacing that we do in Millville. The complicating factor, which I have an email to schedule now, is the widening at Hartford at
Plain Street.
Plain. Thank you. I remember Talbot.
Yeah.
At Plain Street and the signalization of that intersection, so we don't want to either rip up someone else's right or have them work, so we're coordinating with that. Scheduling a sidewalk. So I don't have timing from either us or from them, but that's Plan 1A. And once we kind of get quotes on that, we're hopeful to be able to do that in this fiscal year because kind of our bids end June 30th. We have to rebid.
And that stretch of road could conceivably say it's in an commercial industrial section of our town, correct?
I can even sell that.
Should, I'll send you another link to the one stop, because they've got some grants specific to just revitalization of those types of areas.
Yeah, that's in the general.
Particularly since that is a tributary for a big piece of Hopedale's commercial space.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking that if this work weren't gonna get, I mean, they're gonna finalize decisions, what, in the June to August timeframe? So it's not too late to try to pop something in there.
And I will say the work needs to get done, but have the surveyor talk about, detours, disruption and one way and all that kind of stuff. It's not. And then the Mendon Senior and Community Center Building Committee updates. Again, I wanted to keep this on here to show the board's commitment to this project. That it's in my town administrator report as well, but in the future, I imagine the building committee will be looking for some sort of direction on what to do with this report from here. So unlike the pavement study, we'll likely keep this off for the next agenda. That the committee is going to want some guidance from.
And then I guess any other future agenda items that are What will we know?
Tom had mentioned, sorry, as chair keeps popping. Tom had mentioned in March that they would like to come back and bring the public feedback and bring their proposed town meeting items. So we
Yes.
should make time for them sometime.
Maybe after the budget meeting?
Yeah, like that 19th or the weekend after, whatever. We have to stick it in there before the warrant closes.
I was about to say, and another future agenda.
Oh, it's, yeah, opening the,
Right.
yes, definitely.
We need a specific topic, Jeremy, for what we met on this afternoon. Zoning, would that just go through the normal
Yeah, that
warrant
would,
process?
yeah, they would kick it off through zoning bylaw review and then come here. So we're talking about a age restricted multi-use
Oh, okay,
district.
right. We're adding on to the existing, right?
So it's with zoning bylaw or will be with zoning bylaw review committee or planning board, refer to us, refer to you all. To add to the warrant, go back to the planning board to have a hearing. There's lots of steps.
Right. But it'll happen through the normal town meeting warrant process for us. We don't need a special item in there. Okay.
Will be discussed.
It's just,
So I guess other future agenda items, I'm thinking there probably will be some related to other goals that we set here, so.
Yeah, so. We had thank you Brendan, referred another agricultural committee member. I've got a list of folks to contact between now and the 19th to chat with about both that and recreation field
Oh,
committee.
great, I was gonna ask.
So, yeah, that's good. Reminder that, that will likely be on the 19th. Yeah, Katie was just the person for you. Next time.
yeah, she just did post on Facebook and she just moved. Yeah, it's really far. Why not? I don't know.
Get her before she's out.
Okay, anything else mentioned? Okay, so our next meetings, as we've already talked about, February 12th, so next Wednesday at 6 p.m., so not our usual 6:30, 6 p.m. the joint meeting, and that's going to be at Nipmuc High School in their, is that professional development? Yeah, so it's where they have their school committee meetings, I believe, for those of you who know that. So yeah, second floor. And then February 19th, our regular 6:30 meeting here.
That February 12th meeting, that'll also have Upton's Board of Select Board and FinCom as
Yeah,
well.
we have a joint meeting with them, at least that I've been on.
I don't know that they'll have a forum there.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we've had multi-board meetings where they've had members, maybe not their full board, but we've had members.
No, I mean, when my first.
Right, yes,
Way
not, yeah,
Not recent.
not in my time. If that's, I mean, I haven't met most of them.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if I've met any of them, actually, so.
I'm at the TA at 3:51.
Yeah, cool.
Jeremy introduced me, so that's nice.
Yes.
I'll be there. It's gonna be tight, so it might be.
Okay. All right, so then, I guess last thing on here is winning adjournment, so I'd be,
Motion to adjourn.
okay,
Second.
discussion, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Meeting is adjourned.
That's it.
We do that?
It was 9:10, so meeting adjourned at 9:10. Bang, bang.